Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. For this one we're going to continue on with the Scottish Beer Month of reviews that I've been doing for you. So this is review number 6 in that series. So we're going to visit a new brewery who I've never tried anything from before. I got this beer from Dunnottar Wines and Spirits, or Dunnottar Wines and Spirits, sorry, in Stonehaven to the south of Aberdeen. And this brewery are apparently a very new one and very highly rated one, and you'll probably recognise the name of the place that this comes from. So this is the Loch Ness Brewery, and this beer is called LightNESS, and pretty much every beer you get from these guys is called something Ness. So I think you get Wilderness, Redness is another one as well. So all of the beers are named in that kind of fashion. So as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. Very short for this one because it's a very new brewery. If you are simply interested in the tasting of this beer, feel free to fast forward a few minutes into the video and you will get right to that. The brewery website is in the video description for you below, so check that out if you're interested, and there's a link there as well to my future Loch Ness Brewery reviews, which I will add to once I get home from Australia. So, the Loch Ness Brewery is attached to the Ben Leva Hotel on the shores of Loch Ness, and the brewery and hotel are owned by brothers Alan and Stephen Crossland, who decided to add a small 2-barrel brewery to the hotel's pub and start brewing their own beers. Now, they served their first beer in the pub in January of 2011, and this proved to be very popular, so they decided to start distributing their beers in bottles on a small scale, and apparently a lot of help in the early days of this brewery came from Angus McRory at the Isle of Skye Brewery, and this is a brewery that I will visit later on in this series. I have one of their beers through in my box of Scottish beers through in the other room. But the brewery do some traditional styles of beer but do some more adventurous and modern brews, and they're actually looking to further expand their brewery because of how popular the beers have become actually. And as I say, I've heard that these beers are very good. This is my first contact with them, so I really look forward to trying this one for you. But that's your kind of brief history of the brewery, very short and sweet. But the other beers you can get from this brewery include LightNESS, this is this guy here, which is a golden ale, Wilderness, which is an amber bitter, Redness, which is a red bitter, Loch Ness, which is a traditional 80 shilling stout, that's a traditional Scottish style of beer, and you also get Darkness, which is a stout as well. So let's get on to the tasting of this guy then. This one is a 3.9% golden ale. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little quick look at the artwork of this one. It's quite simple, but it's quite nice actually. So there you can see, that's the sort of front of the bottle. You can see the collie dog just kind of having a watch of out over the hills over there over Loch Ness. Loch Ness, in case you're wondering, is just to the south of Inverness, the Highland capital of Scotland. And it says here on the back, LightNESS is a light golden session ale with a hoppy finish, brewed and bottled in the Scottish Highlands with passion, made with water, Maris Otter pale, malted wheat, with the addition of Columbus and Galaxy hops for a crisp, refreshing taste and citrus note. So there you are, it's a 3.9% sort of golden blonde ale. It uses Maris Otter pale malts and malted wheat and Galaxy and Columbus hops, this one. So let's get this guy out and on with the tasting here, just so you can see as well. It's a plain bottle cap on this one, and we'll get this guy out and into the glass. So as you can see, a nice kind of smoky opening on this one. We'll get it out and into the glass. I'm really excited to try this one. A lot of people have said to me, you know, the Loch Ness Brewery, very new brewery, producing some really nice stuff. I'll just leave a little bit in the bottle just now and we can have a little look at the colour and have a smell of it before we actually taste it. So I'll bring over the light and let you have a little look at this. It's poured a very kind of clear golden colour. I think there's a little bit of sediment in this that's kind of floating about actually. There's a good bit of carbonation. You can see if I put my fingers behind it, quite transparent. There's about a half finger of a kind of frothy white head there. It looks like a really nice beer. Quite cool to see this kind of sediment just floating about there, but it looks really nice. So let's give it a smell and see how we get on here. I'll just put the light back down. But yeah, very hoppy brew this one actually. You can smell that right away with it. But it's got a sweet kind of bready and yeasty malt base to it as well, and when you sugar it up like this you can pick that up quite easily. Definitely a nice fresh bread. Quite a sweet yeasty malt base in there, really interesting. A nice bit of caramel, kind of brown sugary element to the sweetness of the yeast too. But there's a nice grassy and citrus character in there too. But very sweet malty one, and you are getting that nice kind of fresh grassy character coming out of the aroma too. Quite an interesting one. I've never smelt one that has quite that interesting blend in the malt base. Some nice caramel character, bready and yeasty. and just that kind of nice grassy and citric freshness on top. So let's get the rest of this guy out and then we'll give it a taste. So if the kind of flavour of this one matches the aroma in any way, I can see why these beers are so popular. I mean, it smells beautiful. And very, very new brewery. And this is like I was saying to you in the review of the River Laven beer. A lot of these little small breweries in Scotland can produce some excellent beer, and even though they're not very, very well known. And hopefully Scotland is producing some really, really awesome craft beer. And I mean, we're very famous for whiskey, but now that we're kind of turning our attention to beer a little bit more, we're doing very, very well with it. So let's give this guy a taste and see how we get on. My first contact with the Loch Ness Brewery with their LightNESS Golden Ale. That is a big, big bitter blast of a beer. I mean, this is the thing. Just from tasting this one, this is different from any golden ale that I've had in Scotland, and this is actually what is really, really cool with all these little breweries. I mean, in Scotland we have about 50 of them, and there's some really good golden ales. I mean, offhand I can think of Caesar Augustus from Williams Brothers, Yarrow from Fine Ales, and there's quite a few others in there as well. But this one just tastes so different. I mean, River Laven Brewery, they aren't very far away from this one either, but their one, the one that I did for you the other day, the blonde one, is even different from this. This has a really interesting malt base on it, this one, and like I say, you can smell that in the aroma. Yeah. On top of this, it's a really kind of bitter blast, this beer. It's really interesting, actually. Underlying this beer, you have a really nice kind of biscuity malt, and it does have some sort of cereal, bready character to it, actually. It definitely has a bit of spice, this one. That might be the contribution of the hops, and that's kind of lying on the top of the tongue there. You've got this kind of unusual kind of cereal spice character, and that really lingers. That's quite prominent in the malt base of this one, but it mixes with the hop flavours very, very well. It's really quite aromatic though. There's a good kind of nice kind of grassy character to this one. But I think this one is very kind of, it's very, in the malt base, it's very kind of cereally. It has a nice bit of spice that just sits there around the edges of the tongue. You've got a nice kind of almost grassy character to it, quite aromatic, but not quite a punchy aromatic, if that makes sense. You can pick up the grass element of the character that just kind of lives around the edge of the tongue there, and you've got a nice really cereally malt base that gives it just this little bit of spice, and it's really big and really bready. It's not. It's the interesting thing about this one is it's not what you would expect from the aroma, actually. But yeah, the malt base on this one is the real prominent part of the beer. The hops, I think, are actually quite subdued, although they sort of are helping bring out this kind of cereally spice from the flavour. I mean, the Williamette hop is one that I've not encountered for a little while, but I remember it kind of helping to bring out a nice grassy and aromatic character. And I mean, if that's what they were intending with this beer, they've done it very, very well. It's a really nice one, this. But yeah, big malty beer, this one. A really nice cereally aromatic base on it that kind of, you get this really nice kind of cereal spice, big bready and yeasty character. The yeast isn't too sweet, actually. It's, the thing with the aroma is it smells like it's got a rather kind of biscuity malt, but this is a really kind of cereally, not quite rye bread actually, but not far away from it. It's almost like it has a big rye bread malt base, this one. Just a tiny little bit of a sort of caramel sweetness in there, but absolutely beautiful. On top of that, you definitely have quite a big kind of grassy, slightly aromatic hop in there. Not too punchy and aromatic hop, like I say. There's a little bit of citrus. It's almost like a bit of citrus and grapefruit flavour, but it's not quite as juicy fruity as some of these American pale ales. It's that sort of typical kind of soury character a little bit, and that cereal spice mixes in very well with this grapefruit character in this beer. But as I say, it's a very unusual one. It's not the kind of juicy, fruity character that you expect. It's the sort of It's almost like they've extracted the kind of sourish flavour that you get from grapefruit and put that in the beer. But it's a I mean, I keep repeating myself for this, but it's a very, very interesting beer, this one. It's definitely worth the try if you get the chance. And I definitely, when I come home from Australia, I will definitely be doing more Loch Ness beer reviews. Maybe by that time they'll have their own brewery and stuff, of course. But, I mean, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, it's quite light-bodied, although I will say the malt base makes it feel as if it leans more towards a medium-bodied beer. It's got quite a fine carbonation. It is quite smooth in that regard, I would say. Yeah, the carbonation sort of builds a little bit through the taste of the beer. And it just comes out on the front of the tongue and towards the back as well. But there's a good bit of dryness in the end of this one from the hops, and it has a really, really nice bitter character to it as well. I mean, if you want a nice bitter and hoppy beer that has a really kind of very unusual malt base, this is definitely one to go for. And as I said at the very start of this review, Scottish kind of blonde or golden ales have a huge diversity, and this is the idea with, I mean, all the different malts and hops you can import from all over the world now. I think they use their malts. Most malt in Scotland tends to be quite locally sourced unless it states otherwise. But it kind of shows you the real diversity of beer that we have in Scotland. And this one is a hugely interesting beer. And if this is a brewery that started, what, about 3 years ago, and they're producing beers like this, you know, best of luck to them. I mean, they're not going to need it. Very, very good beer, and I would really love to try the other ones of this. So check out the Loch Ness Brewery. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. This is a beautiful beer that I really recommend you try. I would be really interested to try the other ones from this brewery, like I say, but I'm away to Australia soon, so I think that kind of has to be put on hold a little bit. But I hope you've enjoyed this beer review nonetheless, and that you're enjoying this series of Scottish beers that I'm doing for you. Please comment in the section below, if you do happen to have tried this beer yourself. Always interesting to hear from my viewers on these things. But I hope you've enjoyed the review. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I will catch you tomorrow with the next in my series of Scottish beer reviews. Cheers!